How does one drunk fun wife moment at an office party turn into a public legal ending? What happens when a wife mocks her husband as boring and jealous, while he quietly collects every post, every clip, every message? Can she still call him the villain when the papers hit her hands in the lobby and everyone watches? My name is Elira Kazant, and I am tired of people acting like a wife is supposed to be some quiet little helper in the background. I work in HR for a big company. I manage people's problems all day, and when there is an office party, I think I deserve to be the fun one, the one everyone remembers. That morning in the kitchen, the sun came in hard through the small window over the sink, and Jonah stood there with his serious face, stirring his coffee like he was reading bad news in the foam. He asked what time the office party would end. I said it would be late and I would probably stay after with the team. He asked if I would drink a lot again. I said I was not a teenager and I knew my limits. I did not mention that I had already planned my outfit in my head and that my friends had a betting pool about who would get me to dance on a table first. He does not understand that this is normal now. People post everything, people laugh, and then they move on. He takes it all too deep, like every joke is a cut. Lena sat at the table with her cereal, swinging her legs and humming. She asked if we were going to see Grandma Helena this weekend. I said probably, if Daddy did not cancel again. Jonah looked at me over his mug, and I could see that sting land, but I just took another sip of my own coffee and acted calm. He told me he did not cancel last time, that his mother had a doctor thing. I said he always has some excuse. It is strange how a man can be so smart with computers and still so slow with feelings. When my sister Mara called me on video, I turned the phone so Jonah was just a blur behind me at the stove. Mara asked if I was ready to show my office who the real boss was tonight. I said yes and laughed and flipped my hair on purpose. She asked if Jonah was still being weird about Rafa. I said Jonah was being insecure and jealous because Rafa actually talks to me at work. She laughed and said that IT guys like Jonah always think they are better than they are and that I should let him sit with his little screens while I live my life. Jonah heard her voice and asked if Mara was telling me to behave. I said she was just trying to cheer me up because he makes everything heavy. He asked why I had to call him insecure in front of our daughter. I said if the shoe fits, it fits. He hates when I say things like that, but maybe he should stop giving me the material. I am not crazy or reckless. I just want more than a grey life. At work, people see me as bright and strong, and I like that more than being the woman who picks up socks from the floor. While we talked, his phone buzzed on the counter and lit up with a calendar reminder, and I saw the words, downtown 10:40 a.m., meeting personal, for just a second before he tapped it away. I raised my eyebrows and asked if he had a secret lover. He said it was nothing I needed to worry about. I laughed and told him it was cute he was trying to have a life now, and that maybe he could learn how to have fun instead of judging me all the time. He did not argue, he just turned back to the pan and flipped the eggs like I had not hit a nerve. That bothered me more than if he had started a fight, but I did not show it. Instead, I stood there picturing the office party lights, the music, and all the faces turned toward me while I danced. At work, they call me the one who keeps the mood going, the one who can talk to anyone. When I told Rafa about the party last week, he joked that the only way it would be good is if I ended up on a table. I pretended to be offended, but inside I liked that he saw me like that. It is harmless flirting when nothing really happens, and if Jonah does not get that, it is his problem. I think if your partner cannot handle you being wanted by others, that means they are not secure. Respect follows results, and I have results in my life. I keep this family together, even when Jonah acts like a sad ghost in his own house. After breakfast, Lena left a sticky handprint on my skirt when she hugged me, and Jonah pointed it out. I said at least someone wanted to touch me before rolling my eyes. He told me he did not like when I said things like that. I said maybe he should act more like a husband and less like a roommate. I know that sounds harsh, but I am only honest. People always say they want an honest woman until they hear the truth. Before he left for work, he put a small folder labelled household on the counter, with some bills and notes clipped inside. He said we needed to talk about expenses sometime soon. I said we could talk after the party because I had enough to think about. He said he did not like that I treated the party like a performance instead of a work event. I said in my field, image is part of the job, and that he should be proud his wife is the star. He asked if I would at least not drink so much that I forgot I was married. I said if he trusted me, he would not talk like that. This is how it always goes. He makes me feel like a bad person for wanting to feel alive, and then I have to push back. Later that day, while he was downtown, he sent a short text saying he would be home a bit later than usual. No smiley face, no heart, just flat words. I told Mara that he was probably going to a support group for men with fun wives, and we laughed. I still do not know where he went, but when he came back that evening, his whole energy felt different. He did not ask many questions about the party. He did not remind me of anything. He just cooked dinner in silence. When I raised the topic myself almost to poke him and told him the whole office expected to see me on the table, he only nodded and said he hoped I would get home safe. He did not call me disrespectful, did not throw my past jokes in my face, did not push for promises. He watched me with this calm, faraway look that made me feel like I was talking to someone behind glass. After we put Lena to bed, I stayed in the living room with my phone, scrolling through dresses and planning my makeup. Usually he would stand in the doorway and ask one more time if I was sure about staying out late. That night he just said he was going to bed, and that I should not wake Lena when I came in. I asked if he was seriously going to sleep before 9 like an old man. He said he was tired. He did not raise his voice, did not roll his eyes, did not storm off. It was like he had turned some switch inside and decided my drama was just background noise now. I told myself he was sulking and playing the victim, and that once he saw the pictures of how amazing I looked, he would feel stupid for doubting me. When the bedroom door clicked shut, and I saw the soft glow of another meeting personal reminder on his screen before it went dark, I smirked and turned back to my mirror, already hearing the music in my head. The morning of the party, the office felt like a stage that already knew my name, and I walked across the open-plan floor feeling eyes on me in a way I liked. People called out that they could not wait for tonight. I said they would get a show if they were lucky. Rafa passed my desk and tapped the corner of it with his knuckles, and he asked if his favourite HR queen was ready for her big night. I said he should focus on his numbers and leave the performance to me. He laughed and said the only thing people would remember on Monday was me on a table. I rolled my eyes like it annoyed me, but I felt a warm thrill in my chest. At lunch, I checked my phone and saw a shared calendar notification from home, one I did not remember setting, and it showed Jonah's name with a block that said, Atrium 3:15 p.m., personal. I stared at it for a second and pictured him sitting under glass ceilings with his serious face, talking about feelings or something. Nina leaned over and asked why I was frowning. I said my husband was probably having a secret meeting about how to stop me from dancing. She laughed and said he sounded exhausted, and she asked if he had seen the memes from last year's party when people were already kind of wild. I said he had seen enough and that he would survive this year too. In the afternoon, my manager Paula came by my desk, and she asked quietly if we could all keep things professional at the party since clients might visit the hotel bar. I smiled and said we were all adults and knew how far to go. She gave me a look I did not like, the kind of look that said she had heard stories about me, and she said some people had long memories and that videos do not always disappear. I told her, in a light voice, that the company should be glad I kept morale high. She did not argue. She just walked away with a tired sigh. When I checked my messages during a slow hour, I saw one from Mara, who asked if I had picked the dress that would make Jonah really sweat. I said he could sweat all he liked and that I was not going to live small so he could feel big. She sent a string of laughing emojis and told me to give them a show, then asked if Rafa was going to be there. I said, of course, that he was the star sales guy and they would probably play his favourite songs. She wrote that men like Jonah hate men like Rafa because one knows how to talk and the other hides behind screens. I looked at Rafa across the room, leaning on a desk and making some intern laugh until she turned pink, and I decided that tonight would prove my point, that I was still the woman people noticed. Before I left work to get ready, Jonah sent a message saying he hoped I had a good time, but that he would appreciate me coming home safe and not too late. There was no joke, no smile, just that stiff line. I replied that he should relax and be proud his wife was the life of the party. He wrote back that he did not want to be the joke. I did not answer. At home, as I passed through the hallway to the bedroom, I noticed a thin binder on the shelf labelled Utilities, and it was thicker than I expected. I opened it for a second and saw bills, notes, and a few printed tables he had made. It bored me, so I shut it. In the guest bedroom, a folded stack of his shirts sat on top of a small suitcase, and when I asked earlier in the week why his clothes were there, he had said it was just for convenience since he sometimes woke early and did not want to wake us. At the time, I called him dramatic in my head and forgot about it. That night, it just felt like more proof that he liked to act like a victim instead of a man. I put on my dress, short but not illegal, tight in a way that made me look alive again, and I took a full-length mirror picture. I sent it to Mara and she asked if Jonah had seen it. I said he would see it in somebody's story like everyone else. In the taxi to the hotel, Nina and Cassie sat on either side of me and took videos while I pretended to pout and then smile. They asked if Jonah was mad already. I said he was always mad about something and that he should be happy I had not turned into a boring mom. When we arrived, the hotel ballroom was already loud, coloured lights bouncing on the high ceiling, people drinking and dancing in small groups. The DJ saw our badges and shouted the company name, and the crowd cheered. I felt my whole body relax in that noise. At first, I stayed near the bar, talking to people about projects, but it shifted quickly into gossip and jokes, and someone showed me a comment thread from last year's pictures. They joked that this year needed to top the last one, and they said they were counting on me. I said they were all sick and that I was a married woman, but I smiled while I said it. Rafa came over with shots lined on a tray, and he asked if I was ready to make management nervous. I said management should thank me. He leaned in close and said slowly that he could not believe Jonah ever complained about working with me, and that if he were married to me, he would throw parties every week just to show me off. I laughed loudly so people could hear, and I felt the words slide into my head like honey. After a few drinks, someone pointed at a long table in the middle of the room and started chanting my name. Nina joined in, then others, and within seconds the whole group near the dance floor clapped and stomped. They shouted that it was time, that I could not back out now. I held up my hands and said they were insane. They just yelled louder. Rafa offered his hand and said that the night would be boring without at least one legendary move. I told myself I would just step up for a moment, just enough to show I still could, that it would not mean anything. When I put my foot on the chair and climbed onto the table, the roar of the room felt like a wave, and I forgot about Jonah's tight jaw and his texts. I moved my hips to the song, laughing, flipping my hair, stepping over empty glasses. Phones were everywhere, little bright rectangles. People shouted that this one was going on the group chat, and maybe beyond. Rafa put his hands near my ankle to steady me when I turned too fast. I let him. At one point the music hit a beat, and he reached up, holding my waist so I would not fall, and I leaned down toward him, my hands in the air, the crowd screaming. Someone yelled that I should kiss him. I pretended not to hear, but I also did not step away. The room blurred into colour and noise, and for a moment I felt like this was proof I was not dead inside. If Jonah had been less cold, maybe I would not need to feel alive like this. That is how my mind framed it, and it felt true in that moment. Over the heads of the crowd, near the doorway, I thought I saw a familiar shape, tall, still, watching, and my stomach flipped. But then someone shouted my name again and clapped, and I told myself I was imagining it. It was easier to believe that than to think he had actually seen. Lights from phones flashed from every angle as people filmed the last big move, and Rafa squeezed my leg with a grin, like this was our private performance even in a crowd. Outside on the smoking patio, the air was cold and the music was a muffled thump through the hotel walls, and I leaned against the rail to steady myself while my head still spun a little. People came and went in little groups, laughing, arguing, flirting in the corners. I checked my phone and saw the fresh clip at the top of the group chat, already with comments, little fire emojis and laughing faces, and jokes about my new side job as a table dancer. I felt proud and a bit dizzy at the same time. Then I felt a presence beside me, and I turned and saw Jonah standing there near the door, hands in his pockets, face tight in that way that tells me he is trying not to make a scene. He asked why I thought it was a good idea to dance on a table with my co-worker's hands all over me in front of everyone. I said he should be happy that people admire his wife instead of acting like I embarrassed him. He said he was not proud, he was hurt, and he did not like being tagged in a video where his wife looked single. I said he was reading too much into it and that everyone knew I was married, so it was fine. He asked if I had to lean down that close to Rafa's face. I said Rafa was just making sure I did not fall and that only a jealous man would twist it into something else. He told me it did not look like that. Not on the screen and not in real life. I said screens lie and that if he loved me, he would trust my version. The whole time, people slipped past us and I could feel their eyes on us, but the more I felt watched, the more I dug in. I told him he was trying to control my fun and that he always wanted me to be small and quiet. He shook his head and said in a tired voice that he just wanted basic respect. I asked if his basic respect included following me to a company event like a spy. He said he only came because he saw the video and was worried about me. I laughed and said he sounded like my father and that maybe he should go home if he could not handle seeing other people enjoy me. That line landed hard. His shoulders sagged a little. He said quietly that maybe I should think about who really laughed in that room and who paid the price later. I told him he was being dramatic and that people would forget by Monday. He looked at me like he was seeing someone he did not quite know, and he said he hoped I was right. Then he walked away, back inside, without yelling or grabbing or anything messy, just a straight line into the noise. I told myself he was sulking and would come back to beg later, and I stayed on the patio a bit longer, checking my comments and sending Mara a short video. She asked if Jonah had seen. I said he had, and that he was overreacting like always. She replied that he would get over it because no man leaves a woman like me. On Sunday, we went to the supermarket together because we needed food for the week, and I could feel the strange little looks from some people in the aisles. In the checkout line, a neighbor from our building stood behind us and said she had seen my video, and she asked in a careful tone if Jonah was okay. Jonah gave a polite half smile and said he was fine. I laughed and said he was being a drama queen because people liked my dancing. The neighbor did not laugh much. She just nodded and looked away, and I could feel Jonah's jaw tighten next to me. On the way to the car, he asked why I had to make a joke out of it again. I said if he stopped acting like a victim, people would stop treating him like one. He said quietly that I did not see how it looked from the outside. I told him I did not care about the outside, only about my own feelings. That evening, after we put Lena to bed, I scrolled through my phone on the couch and watched the view count climb, feeling a mix of pride and a strange guilt I did not want to name. Jonah's phone on the table near the hallway began to buzz and vibrate, and the screen flashed with a contact name that was only a small-scale emoji instead of a word. He picked it up quickly and walked into the hall to answer. His voice dropped low, too low for me to hear the words, but the tone was serious and calm, not the soft kind he used with friends. When he came back, he put the phone face down and sat in the armchair instead of next to me. I asked if his secret girlfriend had called. He said it was just a call he needed to make. I told him he was trying to make me jealous, and that it would not work because I knew he loved me too much to go anywhere. He did not answer. Later that night, I walked toward our room and saw his tablet on the small table in the hall, and the home calendar app was still open from earlier. There was a new note on his schedule for the next day that said, Library 7:05 p.m. Meeting. Personal. I rolled my eyes and told myself he was meeting some boring guy from work or maybe a therapist. The next evening, after that time block, he came home with paper bags from the park and some of Lena's favourite snacks, and he barely looked at my phone when I left it lying with the video open. He sat at the table and went through a stack of letters, opening them one by one, sorting them in small piles. When I tried to start a fight and asked why he did not even comment on the new clip someone had posted from a different angle, he just said he had seen enough and did not need to watch it again. I said he was punishing me with silence. He said he did not see the point in fighting about things I did not respect. Then, instead of coming out with me for our usual after-dinner walk, he told me he was taking Lena to the park alone for some fresh air. I said he was trying to turn her against me. He said she just needed time away from screens. From then on, he stopped coming to drinks with my co-workers, even when partners were invited. When I told him that there was another night out, planned at the rooftop bar, and that people would think we had a bad marriage if he did not show, he said he was fine with them thinking whatever they liked. So I went alone. That night, up at the rooftop bar near the office, the air was cool and smelled like city and fried food, and people kept bringing up the party. Someone pulled up the video on their phone and held it out like a trophy, and there I was, on the table with Rafa's hands on my legs. Nina asked loudly how Jonah had taken it, and people turned to hear my answer. I said he had freaked out like always and tried to make me feel ashamed, and I added that he just could not stand seeing me shine because it made him feel dull. They laughed in the exact way I wanted them to. Rafa slid an arm along the back of my chair and said that if his partner danced like that, he would feel lucky, not threatened. I smiled and let the words soak in. I told the table that Jonah had even gone to the party to spy on me, and I said he had stood at the edge of the room like a security guard, glaring. I made it sound pathetic and funny. It did not matter that in truth he had barely said anything. People laughed harder when I said he should send me an invoice for his emotional labor. Someone said they should record this and post it with the video. They said people loved drama. At that moment, I did not shut it down. I tilted my head and said, if they wanted to see what a fun wife looked like and what a boring husband sounded like, they could clip this and let the internet decide. I knew it was cruel, but it felt powerful. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought about Lena at the park with Jonah, and I pushed the thought away. When I came home late, Jonah's phone was on the nightstand, plugged in, face down, and the light from a recent notification faded as I walked in. He did not ask where I had been. He only asked if Lena was asleep when I left her with the sitter. I said yes, and that he should be grateful I even told him my plans. He said he was just checking for her sake. I felt angry that he would not fight me like before, because if he did not fight, how could I prove he cared? The family dinner at the big restaurant was supposed to calm things down. At least that is what Helena wrote in her message when she said she had booked a long table so we could all talk like adults. I told myself that meant she wanted to apologize for judging me over a video, and I dressed in a simple dress that still showed I had shape, just so nobody could pretend I was some sad, guilty wife. When we arrived, the place was loud with plates and cutlery and other families talking, and our long table sat in the center like a small stage. Helena sat at one end already, with her hands folded, and Darius sat beside her, scrolling his phone. He looked up when we walked in, and I could tell he had watched the clip in the car or something because his eyes were sharp. Lena ran ahead and climbed onto a chair near the middle between us and the cousins. Jonah pulled her chair in gently and sat next to her across from me. I could feel the weight of their eyes before anyone said a word. Helena asked how we were, and Jonah said we were fine. I said we were busy with work and people talking too much. She asked if work was the problem or the talking. I shrugged and said some people could not handle a harmless party. Darius asked if the party had security because the way I stood on the table made him nervous just watching. I said he sounded like Jonah and that someone in this family should have fun. I could see Helena's mouth tighten at that. Then she brought up the clip directly, saying she had seen it because a relative had forwarded it, and she asked what I had been thinking. I said I was thinking that it was an office party, not a funeral, and that people needed a laugh. She said it did not look like just a laugh to her, that it looked like I was not married in that moment. I told her that her generation loved shame, and that younger people understood that a dance was just a dance. She reminded me that Rafa had his hands on my legs, and that the whole room saw it, and that Jonah's name had been tagged under the video. I said Jonah knew I loved him, and that if he chose to feel humiliated, that was his choice. Jonah kept his eyes on his napkin, folding it slowly, and I hated that he did not speak up to defend me, because now it looked like I stood alone. Darius finally put his phone down and said it was not about age, that any man would feel cut if his wife acted single in front of everyone he worked with. I shot back that maybe the problem was he and Jonah had small egos that could not handle a bright woman. The cousins whispered down the table. I saw a flash of my video on one of their screens as they tried to look discreet. That was when Lena, with her small voice, broke through the noise. She looked at me, then at Jonah, and asked why everybody online was laughing at Daddy and saying poor Jonah. The whole table went quiet. Helena pressed her lips together and looked away. Darius stared straight at her and Jonah just closed his eyes for a second. I felt hot and cold at the same time. I told Lena that people were just silly and that they did not understand our jokes. She said it did not look like a joke. Jonah gently told her that sometimes people talk without knowing the whole story. I snapped at the cousin for letting her see anything and said it was rude to show a child that kind of stuff, even though I knew it was my face in the video. The attention shifted for a moment, but the damage was already there. While I was still fuming, Jonah's phone lit up on the table, screen facing up, and I could see a calendar reminder slide down from the top that said, Midtown 4:50 p.m., meeting, personal. Darius saw it too. His eyes tracked from the phone to Jonah's calm face. Jonah tapped it away and said he had some errands later. I made a joke that he had become very popular lately with all these secret meetings. Helena did not laugh. She asked if everything was okay with his job and his health, and said he seemed different lately. He said quietly that he was just organising some things and making sure Lena would always be taken care of. That line made me uncomfortable, like he was speaking in code around me, and I told him to stop being dramatic because we were not breaking up. He did not respond to that. He just asked if I had given the school all the updated emergency contacts, and he checked if Helena had a copy of a key. After dinner, back at home, I wandered down the hallway and noticed that the door to the guest bedroom was almost closed. Before, that room had been a place for laundry and guests. Now it looked more like his small camp. I pushed the door open and saw his suitcase tucked under the window, and on the desk there were neat stacks of papers with sticky notes that said, home, auto, bank. His laptop was open, and on the screen there was a clean file tree with two main folders named Archive A and Archive B. A small Cloud Sync pop-up flashed in the corner for a second and said, file uploaded successfully before it faded. When he heard the door creak, Jonah turned in his chair and quickly minimized something. A spreadsheet that I caught just a glimpse of, with rows of initials and dates. I asked what he was doing, and he said he was just clearing digital clutter. I laughed and said nobody cared that much about files, that this was his way of punishing me by acting like the world might end any minute. He did not rise to it. He just asked if I knew exactly when the rent was pulled each month, and if I had looked at the car insurance policy. I said that was his job and that I did enough already. He said it was good for both of us to know these things just in case. That just in case hung in the air like a bad smell. Later, on the balcony, I called Mara and told her what had happened at dinner. I said his family had ganged up on me, that they acted like I had committed a crime. She asked what they said. I told her they accused me of disrespect and said Lena was already confused. I said they were dramatic and old-fashioned and could not stand a woman who did not worship a man. She asked what Jonah did during that. I said he just sat there, so cold, so calm, like he had already made up his mind about something. Mara went quiet for a moment and then said that sometimes when men get that calm, It means they are not fighting for the relationship anymore. They are just making their exit plan. I told her Jonah would never leave because he depended on me too much, and because nobody else would put up with his mood. She said I should not be so sure. Inside the apartment, I could hear drawers opening and closing softly, and the click of that locked desk drawer I had noticed earlier when I accidentally walked in on him one night. Back then, he had said it was just where he put documents so Lena would not draw on them. I had joked that he was acting like a spy, and he had shrugged. Now the little details, the binders, the stacked mail, the files, made an uneasy pattern in the back of my mind, but I refused to name it. It was easier to decide that he was being petty and passive-aggressive than to admit he might actually be moving away from me. When I came back in from the balcony, he was in the kitchen, wiping the counters clean, his side of the room neat, my empty glass still on the table like a stain. He asked quietly if I had thought about what Lena said at dinner, about people laughing at him. I said Lena was a child and that she would forget soon, and that if he stopped acting hurt all the time, people would stop reacting. He looked at me like he was taking a picture in his mind, then nodded and said he understood very clearly who I was now. That line made me flare up. I told him he was twisting everything to make me the monster. He said he did not need to twist anything, and that he had all the information he needed. Then his phone on the counter lit up with a muted call from private, the word glowing for just a second before the screen dimmed, and he turned away from me to answer it in the hallway. The next weeks felt strange, like living with a polite stranger who wore my husband's face, because Jonah stopped arguing and only spoke about schedules and bills and pickups, and his calm made me more angry than any fight ever did. He had a recurring calendar block that said, "Meeting personal every Wednesday at 8:30 a.m., and one morning I heard a soft alarm on his phone labelled Paper Drop 11:05 a.m., which he stopped with one tap before sliding the phone into his pocket. In the guest bedroom, the shredder hummed while he sorted mail into piles, and when I walked in, he closed the locked drawer with a small click and asked if I had paid my half of the school fees yet. At the park, he told me we should keep money separate for clarity. At home, he showed me a simple spreadsheet and said he wanted everything clear, going forward. I called him petty and cold and said he was trying to scare me, and he looked at me for a long moment before saying he was done trying to fix things and would handle everything properly now. The next morning, the office tower lobby felt too bright, all glass and echo, and I walked in with my coffee ready to pretend that life was normal, until I saw Jonah standing near the revolving doors with a small suitcase and a calm man in a dark suit beside him. For a second, I thought it was some dramatic stunt, and I opened my mouth to ask what he thought he was doing. But the man stepped forward, said my full name, and placed a thick envelope in my hands while security and a few co-workers watched. He explained in a flat voice that it was a divorce petition with temporary financial and custody orders, that I was to leave the house with personal items only and follow the new schedule for Lena starting this week. Jonah did not argue or look away. He just nodded once and turned toward the exit.